Okay, I'm live. The problem is, I don't see. All right. Now we're going to figure out where everything is. Now, how do I know? Hmm. Really is. I guess it is working. Oh, interesting. Okay, see. Oh, interesting. Okay, see. It is terrible. Oh, interesting. Okay, see. That was 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 terrible. Learning, learning, learning. Learning, learning, learning. Okay, it's live, baby. What else we gotta do? I actually have to finish this project. Okay. Yes.
Are you on mute?
No one's on anyway.
Well, my point is, this is be the time when you show the stream showing whatever, and then you can mute yourself, all that stuff.
Show the
I mean,
stream.
stream starting, you know, you have like a whole animation thing in the beginning.
I should create an animation thing.
There are default templates that it comes with. There's a whole like library in there.
It's anyway very, very not user friendly.
What is Streamlabs?
Yeah.
It is. You're not the intended audience, but I'll show you how to use it.
All right. Anyway, I figured out finally how to get my. It was like zoomed onto my nose. All right. Yeah. What am I looking at over here? All right, got some people to join over here. Let's go. Okay. All right. Looking at. I'm not looking at Job, right? Job 1:16:17. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we got an effect. Security alert. Yeah. Streamlabs. That's gonna get it in. All right, everyone who joined, welcome. Good morning on this nice Sunday morning. Not many hours left before Purim. Well, welcome everybody who has come. Thanks so much for stopping in and popping. We're getting started. Getting started on a slow start today. Just a typical Sunday morning. Getting ready for the week. You know, so it's interesting. A lot of people like to talk about the whole incident with the Garden of Eden. Whatever happened in the Garden of Eden, the snake and everything else like that. I'm putting out a video now. I just finished writing it. Another episode of Is a Torah Real? Episode 4 will be coming out soon, hopefully this week. Interesting, the Garden of Eden, and everyone knows the story of Garden of Eden, even if you're religious, not religious, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, otherwise. We all know that God made Adam and Eve, and He put them in the Garden of Eden. I think what a lot of people do not understand is the Garden of Eden is not necessarily allegorical. You say it's allegorical. A snake was talking to him. A snake is the creature, the cunning creature. But there's a lot more to it than that, actually, because you could say there's actually a lot of literal. You can take it literally if you read the words correctly. Hi, okay, we're exploding now. We're getting lots and lots of people joining us. Thanks so much for joining us on the Sunday morning. We're going to talk about the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden is not necessarily what we think. Because if you think about it, the first question you have with what's the first question that you should have when looking at the Garden of Eden episode? The first question, absolutely first question, and that is, snakes don't talk. Snakes do not talk. I have not met a talking snake. Have you met a talking snake? I have not met a talking snake in my life. So, how is it possible the snake talked to Eve? It's interesting. The snake actually talked to Eve, did not talk to Adam. So Adam, we know that God brought all the animals to him for him to name. So there is some commentary, and I think there's medrash that says that he was able to understand the language of the animals. So let's say that's true, that Adam was able to talk to animals. We don't know that Eve had that power. And let's say Eve was able to talk to animals for whatever reason. Could animals talk to them? I mean, in other words, if you were, let's say, able to understand a dog bark or a snake hiss or a horse's neigh, you could understand what they're trying to say. But what are they saying? Horses aren't going to start having conversations. Not going to say, well, did you hear that Zelensky met with Trump in the Oval Office? I mean, that's not what they're going to say. Horses are going to say, bug on my back, need more hay, want to run. Like, the intelligence of an animal is such that not only don't they speak, but if they had the ability to speak, and we had the ability to understand them, there wouldn't be much that they would be saying. So here we have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and a snake is talking to them. You ever wonder how a snake is able to talk intelligently to them? How a snake is able to communicate? Was this a special snake? Hey, Ansar Shalot. Welcome, CMF. Welcome, Diane. Welcome, Peter Jones. Welcome, Shabir. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Koa. Welcome, Hal. Welcome, everybody's coming in. We're exploding now. So that's the first question. That is absolutely the first question in this whole business. Is how exactly is a snake able to talk? Question we got. This is not on topic, but okay. Good morning, Rabbi. Regarding blessing of the new moon, we say Shalom Aleichem to others because of demons. Yeah. At night, you want to say, if you're going to see a person in the form or person in the form of person, you say Shalom Aleichem to them. The demon's not going to respond to you Aleichem Shalom, that's for sure. So, what do we do these days? Customs. Customs do not die. They remain. Even when the reasons for them no longer exist, oftentimes you're just going to leave the custom because tradition. Anyway, getting back to the Adam and Eve and the snake. So snakes don't talk. Right? Snakes do not talk. So what was going on over here? So if you look carefully at the whole situation with Adam and Eve, mankind in chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1, mankind was put on the earth, male and female. And who created mankind? God. God in his capacity as Elohim. God in his capacity of dealing with nature created man in the normal course of events. He created the whole entire world, and he also put man on earth. Then God did something else. He also created two special people. He created Adam, and him he created special, not through evolution per se, and Adam was not born through another creature, but Adam was created from dirt and with the spirit blown into him. Okay, he's created from matter, and the spirit blown into him, so he was fashioned, he was formed as if in a laboratory, as if he was cloned, in a way. He was a special person. Then God took a part of him, whatever it is, it says a side, it says a flank, whatever that means, and created Eve. So in other words, now he had the perfect mate. Okay? So now we have Adam and Eve, these two special people who are going to hopefully not sin. And this is the purpose that God made the world. So that mankind could be on earth, till his garden, benefit from God, and move forward. What God also did was, if you look in the verses in chapter 2, he also created every single beast. Now you're going to say, chapter 2 is only repeating chapter 1. Except one thing. You have to look at the nuanced wording. Because when we have chapter 1, and God made all the beasts, Vayas Elokim, it was Elokim, it was God in his capacity as creator who made all the Chayos Haaretz, every kind of living animal on the land, Limina according to kind, V'yes Behema Limina, and the wild beasts according to their kind. Okay? That was happened in chapter 1. That was a normal way of things were going on. If you look in chapter 2, it says, Vayitzar Hashem, right? Vayitzar Hashem, Hashem formed. He formed. He didn't vayas. He didn't make. Vayitzar, he formed. And who formed? Now it adds the word tetragrammin. It adds Hashem Elokim. It adds the tetragrammin for God. His capacity as dealing with mankind, which was introduced in chapter 2, because in chapter 1 is all about creation. Chapter 2 is about mankind. So now, Vayitzar, he didn't create. He formed, it's a different word, from the ground, also from the ground, from matter, but not from Aretz. Aretz is matter. Hadama is the ground. Kol Chayei Sodeh, all things of the Sodeh, now it's the field. Kol Oifei Shemayim, all of the birds of the sky. And he does not mention Behema here. And he brought them to Adam. So now he didn't create the animals, behemos, wild beasts, are all part of Kol Chayei Sodeh, everything that's in the field. The Kol Oifei Shemayim. Okay? So this is different than chapter 1. Chapter 1 was God, in his capacity as creator, made all living things and all wild beasts. Here, and by the way, the birds were first, right? The birds were the day before. Here, God, in his capacity as dealing with man and creator, both, Hashem, Elokim, both, Hashem, our Lord, both names, Vayitzar, formed instead of created, from the ground, every living thing of the field, and every flying animal. So the flying animals didn't happen first, they happened second. So this is a secondary creation. So already in the Eden garden, there's a secondary creation going on. Adam was formed secondary, and the animals were formed secondary. And what's important is, because later when God talks to the snake, or the Nachash, he says, you are cursed from all the Chayos HaSodeh, all the living things of the field. It repeats that phrase that's only here in chapter 2 and not in chapter 1. So, now we have chapter 3. And and it says, and the serpent, that's how it's usually translated, as the serpent. The word in Hebrew is Nachash. Nachash, if you change around its vowels a little bit, the same wording, the same root, the same letters, you could read it V'hanichosh, and the divinity, the necromancy. Now it's no longer a serpent, because those snakes don't talk, like we mentioned before. Snakes do not talk. I have never met a snake that talks. So this was a divinity, this was a necromancy, this was a special spiritual power that was going on here in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden must have had angels and spiritual beings in it also, as it was a special place. Okay? So, this divinity, this Nichosh, I'm not going to call it a serpent anymore because it's not a serpent. It's mistranslated as a serpent. It's often, the regular translation cannot be a serpent. It can't be. As a matter of fact, it's a famous medrash that Jews know, famous for Jews. There's a medrash that says there are 6 words for nachash. There are 6 words for, supposedly, if you translate it as snake, there are 6 words for serpent. However, if you look at that, the 6 words, they're not 6 words for serpent. Each of those 6 words are actually words for also some sort of divinity that goes through. We have the Nachash, which is here. We have the Tanun. The Tanun is the sea serpent that Moses and Aaron made before Pharaoh, and we know that in later prophets, Egypt is called the sea serpent because of all the necromancy that went out of there. They call it a saraf, but a saraf we know is an angel. A saraf is one of the angels, one of the fiery angels. We know that, and all the words that are for it are old divinity. So I'm going to pull it up. Let me pull it up for you so you can see the 6 words, and we can go from there. Torah is real. How is there now? What happened to it? Angels, man. Unlooked. No. Oh, what is Torah? Here we go. Okay, sorry. Found it. Sorry, guys. Found it. Okay. No, this is not right either. Oh, I know where it is. Here we go. Sorry about that. I just want to pull up the medrash to see about these snakes. Okay, so we have. Okay, 6 names for snakes. All right, so the medrash says there are 6 names for snakes, and it says again 6 names for nachash. In other words, it also could be translated as 6 names for divination. Saraf, we know that Saraf is an angel, divination. Tanin, the word for Egypt and its necromancy, divination. Tsephonia, that we find actually later on, and it talks about that it's where do we find that? That is here. Tsephonia is in in Eov, in Job 2016, it talks about Sfonia, and again, that'll kill a person. That also, we could be talking of venom, but you could also translate it as divination. And Afra also is found in Tehillim, also found as a poison, but also found in divination. So, going back to Genesis, we see that the divination Haya Aram was very clever. So the word Aram is clever. If you look at the verse before, what does everyone translate the verse before? That both of them were naked, man and his wife, and they were not embarrassed. However, if you look at the Hebrew word, there's another way to translate it. And both of them were clever. The same word, same exact root word as clever, is being used for naked, but it's used for clever many times, which means what's the difference between a man, a woman, and the rest of the beasts out there? The answer is men and women could talk. We're clever. We're clever. In other words, clever literally means we have the ability to speak. So they both have the ability to speak, unlike all the other animals that God created, both in the Eden Garden and in the world at large. All other animals were not clever. They were not able to speak. Man and his wife were able to speak. They were clever. And V'lo Yispaishu is not necessarily that they weren't embarrassed. It also could mean they didn't wither. In other words, they were not going to die. They were immortal. Baishesh also means to wither. It means to dry up and wither away. And they were not going to wither. In other words, they were immortal. So at the end of chapter 2 in Genesis, the Torah is saying that both Adam and his wife and Eve, they were both clever, able to talk, and they were immortal. Okay? That was their status at that point in the Garden of Eden. Then you have the beginning of chapter 3, and if you notice, by the way, in the Torah itself, there's no break. Although we have chapter 3, the chapters were not made by the Jews. Jews did not put the chapters in place. The chapters were put almost arbitrarily by outside sources. So how do we know when there are breaks, when there are different story segments in the Torah? That is when it's written in the Torah itself, and there are breaks, there are spaces. In other words, the Torah is written like a column, and there'll be spaces between words, because there's no punctuation in a Torah. So there won't be any periods or commas or anything like that. There'll just be a space, not between sentences, but between segments. So here, there's not a space. This runs right into the next one. The fact that they were both created, Adam and Eve, and they were both clever, able to speak, and they both were immortal, that runs straight into, but the Hanichush and the divinity, the sorcery, was also clever. And the sorcery was able to speak to them. It says Mikol Chai Sadeh, from every, unlike, what does it mean from all of the live beasts? How could it be, if you were saying it was more clever than all the live beasts out there, then you would say Yoser, it was more clever than all the other ones. But it doesn't say more. It says it was clever, and from all the other live animals in the field. In other words, all the live animals in the field were not clever. They could not speak, but this divinity was able to speak. And if we notice also at the curse, when the snake is cursed, he was not cursed not to be verbal anymore. He was not cursed that he couldn't speak and he couldn't be clever. So therefore, whatever this creature is that's talking to Adam and Eve never lost its ability to speak. Whatever curse it got, and we're going to talk about that, it never lost its ability to speak. Okay. So, and it says, this divinity was clever, and it was able to speak, for unlike all the things that the live animals in the field, and everything that God created. And it spoke. It spoke to the woman, and it spoke to the woman, and it said, Afki Amar Elikim, so it must be that God also spoke to him. And it says, Lois, do not eat, you should not eat Mikol Eitz Hasadeh. You should not eat from all. Now, it says Lois Soichlu. U usually means plural. However, in this situation, U is a secondary. It says, you shall not. Lois Soichlu, even though it seems like it's plural. Loisechlu, it really means a singular, and it says, you shall not eat from all the eights of the garden. Why did it say that? What's the strange wording where the divinity is talking to Eve and saying, yeah, it's because of what God said that you can't eat from the tree of any tree of the garden, right? The answer is God never spoke to Eve. God spoke to Adam before Eve was created. If we go back to chapter 2, we see that God created man, verse 7, and he put him into the garden, verse 8, and everything sprouted, verse 9, and then he said, everything garden, that was good. Then God talked. Verse 16 and 17, God spoke to Adam and said, of every tree of the garden you may eat freely, but the tree of knowledge of good and bad you cannot eat, because the day you eat it you shall die. Okay? Then God said in the next verse, after that, in 18, it's not good that man is alone. And verse 19, he made Eve. Okay? So we have 16 and 17, God said, do not eat from the tree. And then he made Eve in the following verses, which means Eve never spoke to God. Only Adam spoke to God. And Adam was given instructions, do not eat from the tree of knowledge. It could be he told Eve that when Eve was formed. That might be the first thing he told Eve. It could be he didn't get around to it. Anyway, this divinity went right up to and said, by the way, you know that there's some sort of rule where no tree is off limit, is allowed, and you are meant to starve. So the woman replied to this divinity, no, we're allowed to eat from all the fruit. Of course we can eat from all the fruit. How else are we going to survive? Right? So she said, of course we can eat it from. Right? Only I heard that the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, that God said you shall not eat from it, lest you die. So in other words, she heard from Adam that God had told them not to eat from that tree. So she didn't hear it firsthand. She heard it only from Adam. And again, the serpent is trying to trick her. This divinity, is trying to trick her and say, did God really say that? Is that really what it said? You can't eat from any of the garden? She said, no, allowed to eat from the garden except for that one. So the serpent said, no, don't worry. That also you're allowed to eat. Just like you're allowed to eat from every tree, of course you're allowed to eat from it. Why did God tell you not to eat from it? There's a reason. Because God knows that if you eat from the tree of knowledge, you're going to be as knowledgeable as God himself. And God doesn't want you to be as knowledgeable. God wants you to remain a dumbo. So this is the first time we have, and this is where the Torah is introducing man to the commandments. So God doesn't just give the commandments, he gives instructions also. And God is saying, let me introduce my commandments to mankind, but with a purpose. Now that is, you keep my commandments because I said so. Not because you think you have an idea, not because you think it's a good idea. In other words, why does the Ten Commandments say not to murder? It's a good idea. If you murder people, society crumbles down. No. It's not the reason why we don't murder. We do not murder because the Torah says not to. The Torah says do not kidnap. Why? Kidnapping is a bad thing, right? It's morally wrong. It's terrible. Society's going to crumble. No. That's not the reason. Sure, all those things are true. The reason why God gave a commandment is not because it makes sense, and not because we're going to learn something out of it, and not because society's going to be held from it. It's because God said so. There are a lot of statutes that don't make sense. For instance, idol worship. Why can't we do idol worship? You know, just because I worship God doesn't mean I can't worship other gods. Let's share the wealth, right? What about why do I have to give a tenth of everything from my field? Why can't I give a ninth? Why can't I give an eighth? Why does it have to be a tenth from the field? When I, different things like that. And there are a lot of things, like in the Sabbath, you can't do work. Really, I could remember God made the world by while I'm writing a letter to my friend. Okay, while I'm writing a letter to my friend, I could remember that God made the earth. Why can't I write on the Sabbath? So there are things that we don't understand. The bottom line is you don't have to understand them. God did not put the commandments if you understand. So therefore, the divinity was already trying to trick Eve and say, one second, I could give you a explanation of why God said it. And if that does not apply to you, then you are allowed to do it. In other words, God said no, but if I could somehow give you a reason why it's okay, then you say yes. Right? Correct? Anyway. So the answer is incorrect. No, that's not the way it works. God gives a commandment, and we have to keep it. All right. So that was Eve's first mistake, thinking that okay, God probably gave it for a reason. That's what this sorcery is telling her. The spirit is telling her. This sort of spiritual creature is telling her. So therefore, it must be that maybe he's right. So it says when the woman saw. Right? And the wording is because the tree was good to eat, not only was it maybe a possible benefit also because it's a tree of knowledge, but the fruit, whatever the fruit on the tree, and we don't know what the fruit was, it definitely, whether it was an apple, that's what a lot of artists think over the years that it was an apple, but there's no proof that it was an apple. Most likely, it was probably something that was like a fig or a date, or a grape, because probably something that grew very good in that region, and we know the great things in that region were the dates and the olives and the grapes and the figs. So it's probably one of those things, but we don't know. Again, it was something that grew on the tree here, or it could have been a special fruit. It could have been a special fruit that we don't even know about because it's the tree of knowledge. Maybe it's some fruit we never ever ate. It could be a fruit that never was introduced to mankind. The rest of the earth, it only grew in the Garden of Eden, so we don't know what it was. So when she saw, when it appeared to her, right, when she saw that it was good to eat, so then she also then had a desire. Right? She had a desire for her eyes to be opened up. She also said, oh, not only is it good to look delicious, but maybe I also want my eyes to be opened up. I don't really care what the snake said about the fact that why God said I can't eat from it. And the bottom line is, once there's a reason why I might be able to, now there's a desire. She did not eat it because she wanted to have knowledge like God. That's not why she ate it. She didn't eat it for a desire to become like God. She ate it because the fruit all of a sudden looked good now. And the nechmad, it was pleasing to her, right? To her. And she also wanted the tree to give her wisdom. So she took from the fruit and she ate. So the original reason why she wanted it is because it also was desirable to her. A, she couldn't have it, and B, the divinity was tricking her and saying maybe it was good for her to eat. So she wanted it. Plus, she said, "Oh, maybe I'm going to also get knowledge." She was trying to convince herself that there was a reason why she would want it. There was a reason why she actually should eat from this. So she ate from it. And she also gave to the man. Now, this is a word that's never else anywhere in the Torah. Le'isha, to refer to a man, but there is a special dot inside the hay making it le'isha. And it's to the man. Really, you read it in the normal Hebrew, you translate it as to the woman, but it's to her man. I think it's the only time it ever uses this phrasing to say to her man. So also, and again, if you notice, what do we notice about this? It does not mention Adam and Eve by name. It mentions the man and it mentions the wife, the woman. The woman spoke to the divinity and the woman gave to her man. It does not say Eve. They were already named previously, Adam and Eve. They were already named in the chapter before. And yet, Actually, I think. I'm sorry. I think Adam names Eve after this incident, when he decides that she's the mother of all. Yeah, sorry. It was after this incident that he named Eve. Sorry. So she does not have a name yet. So it was Adam and it was wife, but it calls her the man and the wife. So how did the mistake happen? Look back at verse 3, and verse 3 says, when she repeats what Adam said to her, it says, "You shall not eat of it or touch it lest you die." She mistaken thought that she can't even touch the tree of knowledge. But the divinity tricked her and said, "Why don't you touch it and see what happens?" She touched it, saw that nothing happened. So then he says, "You also are not going to die if you eat it," and that's how the serpent convinced her. So she desired it, and now she desired it. She tricked herself thinking that really she wanted knowledge when it's not really what she wanted. Okay. So that she gave it to the man, and he ate. And whether he knew or not that it was from the Eitz Hadas, we don't know. It does not say that she told him where the fruit came from. And again, if we're going based on the assumption that it's a fruit that's only in the Eden garden and nowhere else in the world and easily identifiable as the fruit of that tree, then Adam should have known. If it is a fruit like a fig or an apple or a pomegranate or a date or a grape or olive or anything else like that, that's not easily identifiable as the tree of knowledge, in other words, it could have come from some other source, then Adam is safe. And he did this by mistake. But if it was a fruit, and it doesn't say what type of fruit it was, it just says it was a special type of fruit. If it was a special type of fruit from a special type of tree, so then that's where we are. I mean, then Adam should have known about it. Okay. So she gave it to her husband to eat. Now, verse 7 is very important. Verse 7 says that both of their eyes were healed, in a way, right? It says they became sightful. The word over here is usually used for someone who does not have sight and is made to be sightful. They got sight for both of them. Vayedu, and they knew. In other words, now they knew what was going on. They knew. What did they know? Now they looked at each other. They finally had a relationship. They understood that they are in everything together. They weren't separate. Where was Adam the entire time? Adam was gone. I don't know where he was. It was not mentioned here. If Adam was with his wife, this wouldn't have happened. But Adam left her alone to do his own thing. So now he understood a man and a wife has to be together. And also they understood that they were clever and they were talking people. And again, I'm not using this word for naked. It's not what it means. It means clever. They understood that they were different than all other animals. That they were different than all of the other species there because they were able to speak, and other animals could not. And they now understood also that the spirits are able to speak to them. Right now, they sewed together v'yispru ale te'ena, and they made leaf figs. For themselves, and they made loincloths. Why did they make loincloths? Again, they were naked. We know that, but they didn't have a problem with that. The problem they had was they clearly felt like there was a desire that there's a reason why the spirit wanted to get in between Adam and Eve. And therefore, they made the loincloth to try to become modest. And a way to become modest is that maybe there will be no desire, or at least there will be no ability for the spirit to cohabit with Eve. Adam was now protecting Eve from the spirit. He realized the spirit probably desired her, and therefore wanted to make her godlike, and therefore they had an action to sort of stem that, to stop that. All right, we will continue a different time. Thanks all for participating. Yeah.
Daddy, look what I wrote. What I wrote, Daddy.
What'd you write?